Hello and welcome to Movie Vault 666. My name is Chris, and today we'll be looking at a film which I've wanted to tell the world about ever since I first saw it. The film is called Black Belt Jones 2, and it's a ridiculous 1970s Asian martial arts blaxploitation film starring Jim Kelly. The film, as the name implies, is actually a sequel to another film, and not as I'd initially hoped, to a man. The film is very ridiculous and over the top, but I feel it's a must-see for fans of action like myself, and as such, the only way you can really live my experience is by just diving straight in, as I don't feel that the original film will have had any impact on the plot. Not anything I could notice anyway. So let's get ready to watch Black Belt Jones 2.
Oh no, he's ruining everything! If he carries on this review, then people will find out that this film has no plot at all, and who wants to watch a martial arts blaxploitation film without a plot? That would just be terrible. I have thousands of this film to sell. My entire plan rests on killing my identical brother. Seriously, audience, just roll with it.
The film opens suddenly to our secondary character, Tin Hao, walking towards an obvious fight. As much dubbing ensues, followed by a fight scene as all the staples of a good fight. Ridiculous whooshing sounds with every punch, plenty of pointless goons, and a pirate?
I want one of your men. Who's that? The one behind you. The fat dog.
I don't know him.
Wow, that is not the voice I expected Asian Bluto to have. The two men fight over Bluto. His real name is Fat Dog, in case you were wondering, and the fight goes pretty standardly until things get serious, as the pirate actually lands a punch which seems to be against the rules judging by Tin Hao's expression, and the music sting that plays. The fight continues, and we get to see the zoom-in shot that will be used about 1 million times more throughout this film. Eventually Tin Hao beats the pirate guy up so badly that his lip bleeds slightly, and he concedes defeat, allowing Tin Hao to pursue Fat Dog, whose escape attempt is foiled by Tin Hao's teleportation ability. He's not a slasher killer, is he?
What have you done with all that money?
I lost it. Gambling? It's gone.
All right, that's enough now. We're going back.
Going back? But then I'll be killed.
No, you won't. I'll see to that. You're my responsibility.
And pretty much immediately cut to...
On your knees!
I mean, Tin Hao even just stands there while they discuss what to do with Fat Dog.
Well then, what are we to do with you? You must be punished, according to our rules.
Let's put him in a pig's cage.
And throw him in the sea.
I say we let him go!
Eventually Tin Hao stops and pleads with his boss, Mr. Liu.
Mr. Liu, please spare his life. We've been together for a long time. I promised he would not be killed. Mr. Liu, he came willingly.
Eventually Mr. Liu concedes and says that there must be some punishment, but he'll be allowed to live. He also says that the punishment must be carried out by Tin Hao.
Give me the branding iron. Hot dog, your tattoo is now gone. From now on, you're not one of us.
Well, that was sudden. Hi?
Hi there, George. I'm Michael. The bus is waiting for you up at the villa.
Oh geez, they're going to do that every time he's on screen? For those of you playing at home, look away now. Pursued by some goons in another car and some pretty dramatic music. The soundtrack even makes George so nervous that he mops his brow with what appears to be some panties or an old sock. It's quite hard to tell. In fairness, it's hard to blame him when the next line is this.
Holding this briefcase is like carrying a time bomb.
Huh. I did wonder what that ticking noise was.
Oh, it's all right. No one knows you're carrying diamonds.
Well, at least they didn't before you said that. Eventually, the car is stopped by a van pulling out into the road, blocking the car's path. At which point, George and Michael are beaten pretty viciously by the men who are pursuing them.
That job couldn't have gone better.
Men from the most cockney part of China, apparently. We also see that Tin Hao is a member of the gang before we cut away. The next scene focuses on Aman, a boy who stole a couple of cars in return for money at the request of the gang. He reveals this after an expository news programme comes on the TV. We also meet his girlfriend, who does play a part in the main plot, but has little relevance in this scene. Moving on to the next scene, aboard his own barge, Mr. Liu receives his stolen diamond, and tells his men not to go out until the heat is off and they can sell to their American buyer. Cut to the next scene and we see George in hospital being interviewed by a man with particularly fine hair.
I am in hospital because of the robbery. You should be out there catching the thieves, not questioning me.
Especially as I am definitely not a villain. That's pretty much that for this scene, except for our obligatory zoom in, given that the director doesn't seem to have any other techniques.
Just the zoom.
Enough mocking the camera work, it's time to meet our main protagonist, although not before a very boring man sums up the entire plot for us.
Right, gentlemen. I've called this emergency meeting to pass on bad news. I've just heard from Hong Kong that the North Pole Star Diamond has been stolen. George is in hospital, but should be all right. Now, as you know, the gem company has insured that diamond with us for over $3 million. If it's not recovered by the end of the month, we stand to lose everything.
Fortunately, someone has come up with a particularly excellent plan.
We must do something.
No, not him, the boring guy.
We offer a reward for information leading to its recovery. But at the same time, I think we should send our new operative to Hong Kong.
Where is this man?
Mr. Lucas?
Good morning.
Would you mind turning that bloody piano down?
Mr. Lucas, the board of directors have given their approval for you to take any action necessary for the recovery of the North Pole Star.
I've been known to be called the Black $6 Million Man.
Well, I guess that's it for that scene. Instead, we cut away and get what sounds suspiciously like jazz flute. Well, okay, that is an entirely new kind of shot. I take it back, this director is a genius.
Hello, can I come in?
Black Belt Jones 2 then arrives at George's apartment, and George seems none too surprised to see him as he continues to act as suspicious as possible.
Well, what are you doing here so soon?
Don't forget, time is money.
In other words, no explanation to be given. Anyway, George presses Black Belt Jones 2 for information, but is informed that Jones 2 plans to handle things by himself, which seems to concern George and start the music from the next scene, I guess.
Just keep cool. I'll handle it. Don't worry. I have an old schoolmate who's with the Hong Kong police. There's a possibility. Maybe I'll get something out of him.
I've just received the picture you sent me. What is his name? Lucas is his name.
Mr. Liu then reveals that Black Belt Jones 2, or Lucas as literally everyone in the movie refers to him as, is asking questions in a scene that doesn't appear to be in the movie given he hasn't started yet. He then goes to make some small talk with some businessmen.
Yeah, I've got some business. How do you like the show? Great. Beautiful.
Fantastic.
Not really. It's not really all that fantastic. You could see much better back home in the States.
Alright, it was crap then, what do you want? Anyway, they talk and the Americans try to buy the diamond for less than a third of what Mr. Liu is asking for, but the diamond is too hot, so Mr. Liu refuses.
Our highest offer is only 800,000, and that's as high as we'll go. You think about it.
No, thank you. It's far too low.
Well, Mr. Liu, if you don't sell it to us, I'm afraid you won't be able to find another buyer.
Maybe so, but I can always give it to my fiancée as a wedding present. She'll like it.
Until she gets done for possession of a stolen diamond or it gets linked back to you, you fucktard. We then see Fat Dog eating a watermelon and watching exposition news, We also get to see some of the ladies from the club who are also hearing it and have some of the worst dubbing in the film, which is a feat in itself.
You're not kidding. We'll never see that kind of money. We ought to try and make some more out of our customers.
Wait, so just because you've heard of a sum of money, you think you can just take more money from people? What sense does that make? We focus on the woman from earlier, and then we jump into an entirely new scene where we get more awesome music. I have to get this film's soundtrack. At any rate, George, Lucas, and a new character called Inspector Lou arrive at a club, which doesn't really lead to much. Except for my favourite show in the whole film. Anyway, the woman from the club goes back home to talk to her mum and tell him there's a reward for people with information leading to the recovery of the diamond. She's pretty keen for Aman to squeal so that they can get their hands on the money. However, Aman isn't too sure as he's worried the crooks will find out and kill him. She then takes her top off and Aman seems to look at the next scene. He's probably just nervous because the next scene involves her telling Lucas and George about Aman and the fact that he has information. This leads to Lucas strutting along to more jazz flute. He arrives at Aman's house, who starts playing it cool before taking a wild swipe at Lucas, who pins him and tries to get the information out of him. Meanwhile, outside, one of the goons is walking past seemingly randomly and fortuitously for the plot and spots what's happening.
Let me go!
Are you trying to say you know nothing about it?
Please, let me go!
If you tell me about the diamond and help me find it, you'll have all the money you ever wanted in your life, you hear?
You've only given me $3,000. I have to pay rent, everything. You think that's fair?
Oh, even in my own head, she's bossy. Aman tells Lucas that he dropped some cars off at a certain location for the criminals and will lead him there if he pays. However, when they arrive, there's a poorly laid ambush waiting for them. This fight scene chooses a pretty interesting location, but the choreography is unimpressive, particularly when they use the cars, as it eventually starts to turn more into dodgems than a fight scene. The scene ends with one of the goons kidnapping Aman and the others scattering, Lucas for some reason deciding to chase neither. Aman then gets tortured in a fashion that must remind you is brutal and not comedic, with Mr. Lou's final kick in the chest apparently killing Aman. It's ridiculous, but I'm fine with it, to be honest. It makes it a little more interesting if you can kill someone with a single kick to the chest. Anyway, with Aman dead, it's time to catch back up with Tin Hao, as he brings his elderly uncle aboard the villain's boat to cut the stolen diamond. As he boards, he spots the body of Aman, which leads to nothing. Except the bleary close-up of Mr. Lou's pink shirt, that is. The uncle is given 7 days to cut the diamonds, and the scene ends with one of the most awkward transitions I've ever seen in a film.
So having seen that Aman is dead, Tin Hao goes to visit a girl he likes called Miss Nana, who is supposed to have feelings for him but hasn't really appeared in the film, rather than going to see Aman's girlfriend, who seems to disappear from the film at this point.
What's wrong with you? Why didn't you tell me that you were coming over here?
Don't you know our man's dead?
Can't you tell this is my emotionally distraught face?
I know he is. Tung Hao, I'm tired of this kind of living. Can't we just leave here and go somewhere else?
Wait, who smuggled that band into that house? And what are they playing? It must be exposition music, because we get a huge dump of it here, as Tin Hao explains the entire backstory, whilst the girl brings up feelings she has for Tin Hao which were never mentioned before.
Don't you ever stop and think about the woman who wants to be your wife? Tung Hao, I spend most of my time worrying about you. All right. You don't care if I can't sleep. Because I'm worried that you might get yourself killed. But don't come to me telling me how great Mr. Lou is. Don't touch me.
Don't touch me, motherfucker.
I just can't take much more of this. I just can't. Please, will you get me out of that damn place? I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
Too much emotion in this action film. I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
I've made up my mind to leave that place. Tung Hao, didn't you say that you really loved me?
No, he didn't.
Well, now you can prove it to me. All I ask is that you take me away.
Then Tin Hau makes a kind of unhinged face, like a dog chewing toffee, and the scene comes to a close, cutting to a beach where it appears that the work experience kid for the police has discovered a man's body. Lucas and George arrive on the scene, and I love this part of the film because every time the camera moves it creates a huge whooshing noise. Until Lucas sees his tattoo, and the cat part of him must take over, because something, possibly Lucas, makes this noise. Lucas then has a lead to follow, and the film doesn't just go to a tattoo parlour to look at half-naked women, as this shot proves. After a montage of people having tattoos, Lucas eventually arrives on the scene, followed by Fat Dog. Lucas goes inside and talks to the owner, showing him the crazy picture of the tattoo.
Which one do you like, eh?
I like none of these. I like this.
That's very unusual. It must be another place.
Oh no, that can't be ours. Ours don't make a noise. To cut a long story short, Lucas gets a lead from the shop owner and heads to the club from before, where he's spotted by some of Mr. Lou's goons. It turns out that Lucas's contact is the girl from before, Miss Nana. Although it's probably just a stage name, I don't recall her being given another name in the film. Mr. Lou decides to have her go on stage to do her act, so of course the next few minutes are literally just her in her underwear, with some reaction shots of Tin Hau and Lucas thrown in. Eventually her striptease ends and Mr. Lou orders his goons to kill Lucas. Meanwhile, Lucas talks to Miss Nana in one of the shortest and most wooden scenes in this film, which is saying something. So here's the highlight of this scene and everything you need to know about it.
There's one thing I really admire about you, Nana, and that's your Oriental nature. Shall we make friends?
Let me tell you, I don't want to. Because I don't know you, and because you're black.
Miss Nana. Miss Nana. I'm Armin's friend. You should know him.
I don't know anyone of that name.
I hope you'll remember.
Well, I guess that's that then. As long as they put some vitally important racism in, I guess it wasn't a waste of our time. As Lucas leaves the club, Mr. Lou's goons attack. At first it's rather dull as Lucas easily kicks the crap out of some pointless disposable villains, although the fight does pick up in intensity as some of the goons become armed.
Look out, he's got a stick.
Eventually some of the goons with more screen time begin to get involved, but are also easily disposed of before Tin Hau gets involved himself. The fight between Tin Hau and Lucas is rather brief, and culminates when the police arrive, giving them time for a bit more dialogue and more racism.
Black man, you're lucky this time.
No, man. You won't get away. The next time.
So with Lucas having survived his trap, we get Mr. Lou smoking a cigarette and seemingly reflecting on things when the door opens, and given the obvious nature of the set, this could not look any more like a sitcom. However, things get serious almost immediately with Mr. Lou's slap queuing up the soundtrack.
You.
You think you're too good for me? Well, you're not, and I'm the boss around here. You'll do what I tell you.
They start singing, I'm out of here.
All right. Stop crying. You'll ruin the atmosphere. Come on. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it, you hear me?
After Mr. Lou Irish whips Miss Nana, the whole scene gets very odd. Some of the shots like this, as well as the soundtrack, imply rape, but when we cut to Mr. Lou, he's just standing there, seeming rather confused. So another quote-unquote emotional scene with Miss Nana, as she tries to convince Tin Hau to take her away again, and we get some repetition from her previous scenes. Not only did they pull out this classic line again,
Don't touch me.
but she also gets another slap in the face. The whole scene is unmoving and even made unintentionally hilarious by the delivery of this final line.
He's evil. He's a devil. I tell you, I know what I'm saying. He only wants to use your talents. You know better than a damn dog. You know better than a dog.
Damn.
Back with Lucas, and he receives a call from Fat Dog. with George just out of shot, denying him his usual close-up. Fat Dog arranges a meeting time with Lucas, but Mr. Lou receives word of the meeting, and judging by the dubbing, he receives the tip-off from some kind of 1940s announcer.
Lucas is meeting Fat Dog tomorrow at noon, somewhere near the Saigon Ferry Pier.
Lucas proceeds to Fat Dog's boat, where Fat Dog reveals that he phoned the police and saved Lucas because the goons broke his arm, which Lucas tests by grabbing the brake.
You'd know who they were?
Of course. One of them is responsible for these bandages.
Ah.
Ah! What are you doing?
I was just making sure you weren't lying to me.
Fat Dog says that he knows the location of the diamond, the identity of those who stole it.
You weren't lying to me.
I want 50,000 for all of my information.
And another 50,000 for my bloody arm!
But what kind of things can you tell?
Lucas, however, didn't bring the money with him, and so sets up another meeting with Fat Dog, leaving just enough time for Fat Dog to be killed by Mr. Lou's men. In fact, literally the next scene shows Fat Dog being killed, and this scene goes on far too long before Fat Dog is eventually drowned to the point that he bleeds, I guess. Anyway, with Fat Dog dead, Lucas is back at square one with no leads. The next few scenes are mostly wasteful, until we get a scene with Lucas and George playing chess. I actually really like this scene. It looks like something that could have been in a James Bond movie, as George gives Lucas all of his moves, prompting this response.
I think you've got me this time.
You could cover with your bishop.
Ah, I see. That's a fantastic move. But George, it looks like you're playing both sides of the fence.
What do you mean?
It seems that you've already arranged all my moves for me. I'm always a loser.
However, had this been a James Bond movie, I don't think they'd have included that ridiculous close-up at the end. So with Lucas suspecting George but not having any proof, George does the single stupidest thing that he can do in a spy movie. He goes to Mr. Lou and tells him that he wants out of the deal. Apparently to compound this stupidity, he even goes unarmed and demands money. Mr. Lou isn't too happy about this and sends him off with a final goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Oh, and another one, I guess.
You too. Make sure he gets back. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Jesus, what is wrong with this guy? I just get paid every time he says goodbye. Anyway, of course George is taken care of by Mr. Lou's goons, although that apparently means beaten up and thrown overboard. Seems like there are more effective ways of doing that, but he's not in the movie anymore, so I guess it worked. With George taken care of, Mr. Lou talks to Tin Hau and Miss Nana about his plan to take care of Lucas as well. He wishes to send Miss Nana to get close to Lucas, although given their last scene together I can't help but feel she's got some serious apologising to do. Mr. Lou also goes on to explain his plan in more detail as well.
This is one of the latest drugs from the States. When a man takes this drug, he'll become excited.
Okay, but how is putting Viagra in his drink going to kill him?
His heart will beat faster and faster until he cannot control it. And then he will die in the end.
So it's Red Bull.
No. You get Lucas excited and then let him die in complete happiness.
Yes, it finally came! My super deadly ultra poison! No man can survive this. He will surely die. They will cause his heart to blow up, and it's fast acting! Yes, this will win me the day.
Cut to Lucas walking around the city, and he sees Miss Nana, and after a brief exchange, he invites her back to his place for a drink, giving her an excellent chance to use the poison Mr. Lou gave her. What happens next? Well, Lucas goes to the door as the waiter returns, so seeing this, Miss Nana drops the poison in his drink. How does Lucas get under this? Well, as he and Miss Nana kiss, he uses the old Looney Tunes style switcheroo, so that she gets the poison drink. However, he seems content to try and poison himself as he drops raw egg in his drink. The two drink and we'll be right back as we cut away to another scene involving Tin Hau. We'll be back to that scene later, but first we have an interlude as, well, this happens.
There once was a lonely man who wanted all for his love, he wanted all, though she had had it all before.
The goon's out-of-key singing seems to upset Tin Hau, and there's a brief fight between him and the rest. Wow, I'd say this lot would fight at the drop of a hat, but I think hat dropping is actually a better reason than this. Anyway, that's out of the way, and we cut to Miss Nana, who is seeming very out of it, having drunk the deadly heart-stopping poison.
My heart is beating so much.
I think you've drunk too much.
Oh no, I've only drunk a little.
Bet you now. I know what the reason is.
What's the reason?
It's because I've murdered you with some extremely deadly poison.
Nana, you're with a fine, sexy, young black man. I think you're a very sexy young lady. You follow? That's why you're so nervous.
This is sick. She's going to die. Boo!
Well, my friend, to repay you for the drinks, I think I'll put on a special performance just for you.
So oddly enough, the two begin dancing. Who should show up wanting to find Miss Nana than Tin Hau, who gets the waiter to open Lucas's room for him. Tin Hau finds Miss Nana redressing and storms out with her in tow like an angry parent. Now it's time to cut to the boat, where this time it's Tin Hau on the end of one of Mr. Liu's slaps. Mr. Liu is upset that Tin Hau hid his feelings for Miss Nana from him, and from the audience for half the film, but never mind.
You were supposed to watch the diamond cutter. You think you can hide anything from me? I already knew you two were together. If you love her, why the hell didn't you come and tell me, huh? I would have given her to you. I couldn't care less. There's no need to sneak around in the dark.
He's especially upset because Tin Hau was supposed to be keeping an eye on his uncle while he cut the diamond. Tin Hau then bargains with Mr. Liu for Miss Nana's freedom if he kills Lucas.
Tin Hau, try and kill him.
Boss, if I kill the black guy, can I take her away with me?
All right.
I've got to say, I like how the super deadly poison did absolutely nothing in this film. I mean, Miss Nana drank it about an hour ago and she seems fine and her heart hasn't blown up or whatever. So we get a muted scene with Lucas supposedly talking to Inspector Lee before arriving at Mr. Liu's boat. At any rate, he almost immediately comes face to face with Tin Hau. This fight scene is quite impressive between two skilled martial artists, featuring some fancy footwork, and barring a few jarring edits, it's quite a good watch. Eventually Mr. Liu joins in and kicks Lucas's ass before ordering him to be taken away.
Take away.
Anyway, will that involve killing him at some point, or are you from the Dr. Evil school of villainry? I suppose at least this plan won't take long to explain to the protagonist, as I guess it just comes down to steal diamond, sell it. One of the henchmen goes to get the diamond from Tin Hau's uncle, who bizarrely swallows it for no explained reason. I don't know, maybe he didn't want Mr. Liu to have it, but I guess that could have been explained a lot better, rather than nothing at all. Meanwhile, Miss Nana is preparing to leave when she's stopped by Mr. Liu, and because these two characters are in a scene together, inevitably this happens.
What? You want to leave?
Mr. Liu, you said that we could go. You promised us.
How dare you remember the things I've said? Tin Hau steps in to protect her, and a fight begins between him and Mr. Liu. Miss Nana tries to stop Mr. Liu, but once again... Okay, so the last 10 minutes or so are pretty much all action, so I'll just try and sum it up as quickly as possible. Mr. Liu and Tin Hau fight for far too long as they make their way from inside the boat to the top deck. Meanwhile, the goons rush to Mr. Liu's aid, leaving Lucas unguarded. This turns out to be a mistake, as being beaten senseless has seemingly only made Lucas mad. His fight scene is slightly more interesting as there are more opponents and weapons in use, but still, it goes on too long and I found myself getting bored by the end. Finally though, our two protagonists meet up on the roof, as Lucas beats the crap out of Mr. Liu, eventually resulting in the minute or two that made me decide to review this film in the first place. I hope you're ready for this! Firstly, Mr. Liu is defeated and a mannequin is thrown over the side of the boat. I guess it was an unsuccessful encyclopedia salesman. It's near the end of the film and time to wrap up. They haven't got much time, so let's see how they handle it.
I'm very glad, because the best thing to come out of all this is that we have become friends.
You wait. I'll be going to the States. In 2 years if I'm lucky.
You may be freed in a year and a half if you behave yourself well. All right, then he'll be able to see you at Christmas.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you at Christmas.
Pretty badly then. Anyway, there's no credits, so we ended up getting just a "the end" sign, and that's it. Okay, so that was Black Belt Jones 2, and my god, was that brilliant. I mean, that whole film was fantastic. Had some talented martial artists, which made some of the shorter fight scenes fantastic. But what really made that film was some of the bits that weren't handled very well. The dubbing, the overuse of some of the shots, such as the zoom, some of the cliches. I think it just worked out fantastically. And especially Jim Kelly, who I thought was fantastic as Lucas. He carried a real aura of charisma with him, and I think that's really important for a film of this type. Okay, so it's not one of the greatest films of all time, but I think there's a lot to be seen here that would be a lot of fun for most people. So I would overall really recommend this film to anyone who enjoys action films of this calibre. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to have a drink to cool down. Now, normally I check my drinks for poison, but I can't see how something from the film could possibly affect me.
Ha! You drank the poison. Wait a minute, shouldn't you be dead?
Probably. Let's dance.
No, that's ridiculous. I'm leaving and I won't be back till December.
In that case, I'll see you at Christmas. Chris is a guy who reviews films and doesn't want to rip off copyrighted music anymore. So he hired me to sing this song for free. He said if I didn't, he would hurt my family. I didn't know the credits went on for so long. I just wish that they would stop